There's not a ton of media that breaks the fourth wall.
Past 27 episodes!
A lot of it's just meant to be consumed as a piece of media, and whether it has deeper meaning or not, there's not many moments that make you feel as though you're being personally called out or perceived as an audience member. But if you haven't liked this video, now's your chance. I always appreciate a good fourth wall break in media though, because when done correctly, it gives you a feeling of being in on it. With that said, there is a little bit, but I have yet to experience a ton of that in Honkai Star Rail, until now. Because for some reason, the Herta is a zoomer. Today, we're hag maxing, and in this video, I'm gonna be teaching you how to build and play the Herta. My name is Braxophone, but you can call me Brax, and let's talk about the Herta. But first, I've gotta read you this ad. This video is sponsored by Samsung Gaming Hub, an integrated platform to improve your gaming experience on Galaxy devices. Alongside personalization of how you play and organize games on your device, Samsung Gaming Hub brings cloud gaming to more devices than ever before. As games continue to get bigger and bigger, you need more storage to actually play them, which can get expensive. With Samsung Gaming Hub, you can instantly play tons of games with ad-like loading speeds. For those of you who are fans of Marvel, they got Marvel Strike Force and Marvel Contest of Champions on instant play. And Samsung Gaming Hub is getting more instant plays over time, saving you space and making gaming on the go much easier and very fast. Look forward to all of the new games that you can try on Samsung Gaming Hub. Despite how adorable the Herta puppets are, I was never super enamored by them. Yeah, sure, I hear this song in my head at every waking moment, but Herta's design was never something I really cared about. Until she became a hag. Something about Herta Grande hits different, and I'm not talking about her damage, though that does hit too. Big Herta is an ice erudition unit, meaning she's incredibly strong against multiple enemies. Breaking news, fork found in kitchen. First off, you'll basically always want to play the Herta with a second erudition. There are very specific team exceptions, but 99.9% of the time, you're gonna play her with 2 erudition because her second major trace gives your entire team 80% crit damage with 2, which is insane to think about. It does more than that, but there's 40 other things I have to talk about first because for some reason they decided to weave everything together like a magical girl soup. Her entire gimmick is doing a lot of damage while also making chronically online jokes in her kit. Herta's ultimate costs 220 energy. It also gives Herta an 80% attack buff for 3 turns. It also gives Herta an instant action forward. It also gives Herta a stack of inspiration. By that I mean she's inspired to blow up your screen. Inspiration allows Herta to use her enhanced skill, which does a chinchillion damage. It also rearranges stacks on enemies to prioritize placing them on the big bads. What stacks am I talking about? Well, when she enters battle, she applies stacks of interpretation on the enemy, the things you see literally on their body. The name doesn't really matter, they're basically just stacks that make you dish out more damage on Herta's enhanced skill, which I'll get into after I'm done reading this thesis of a description. Honestly, at this point, I'm not even going to go into the details of every single talent and trace, I'm just going to tell you what's true when your Herta is level 80. Stacks on enemies that aren't the boss are basically 100% negligible. You don't need to really think about them at all. There are very few times where you will have to think about them. When enemies die, they transfer their stacks to remaining enemies. With all of her major traces, you basically just skill the highest stack enemy, which should be the boss, and a Herta skill will give them 5 stacks. Her basic attack will give them 4. An erudition character on your team will give them 4, and any other character will give them 2. The max stacks that you can have on an enemy is 42, and for every stack that you have, your enhanced skill does more damage. It does more damage to the primary target than the rest, and if you have 2 erudition, you actually double the damage added from her talent. At 42 stacks, talent 10 with 2 erudition, the multiplier gets added up to 672%. Cue the flex tape guy.
That's a lot of damage!
The hag's enhanced skill is the bulk of her damage and reminds me of Acheron's damage, except this one's from a Gilf. Her enhanced skill resets the stacks on enemies back to 1, but because you just hit the boss, it actually resets to 5. And because enemies transfer stacks when they die, a lot of times the boss will still have even more stacks afterwards. Essentially, the more enhanced skills you launch, the more tactical nukes you launch without a 25 kill streak. But in order to get her enhanced skill, you need to use her ultimate. The other reason why her second trace that we talked about at the beginning of the video is important is because of her third trace, which regens 3 energy per target attacked for Herta. Her third trace also gives gives her 50% ice damage at 42 stacks, but mainly I just want to talk about that energy thing. Her second trace makes it so that by default with 2 erudition characters, the energy and stack passive from trace 3 counts as a minimum of 3 enemies every time. So all allies will by default generate 9 energy for the hag every single attack, and if they attack more than 3 enemies, they'll generate 12 or 15 energy instead. This makes it easier to get her ultimate more quickly. On the topic of her ultimate, her first trace gives her a 1% ultimate multiplier increase for every stack inflicted on enemies, up to a maximum of 99%. This doesn't really matter since it'll just add up fast and it never resets, it's just more damage. The entire time I've been writing this section, I felt like the picture of the dude with the board and the red strings. Like, why does her talent reference her skill? And to get to her skill, you have to use her ultimate, but her ultimate actually affects her talent, which is affected by your skill, and that's not even accounting for the major traces. This character's gonna make you crash out. Listen, all you need to know to play this character is skill, ult, skill. She's your DPS, then your Bronya, and then your DPS again. The goal is to use her skill, ult for advance forward and enhance skill proc, and then skill again. Even if you have full energy on Herta, if she's coming up, you absolutely want to skill first, since that makes the next attack free. However, if you are in the situation where some idiot support ate all your skill points, you'll want to basic and then ult and then skill. And if she's far off in the action priority, you can just ult skill, that's fine too. She's an incredibly easy character to play and needlessly complex like the American tax code. For general priority, you'll want to level up her skill, talent, and ultimate all at the same time because they all play into each other. Wife Herta does a ridiculous amount of damage. As they say, witches give stitches, or something. In order to achieve that damage though, you'll need a good relic setup. For most hags, I recommend Scholar Lost and Erudition, which gives 8% crit rate on the 2-piece and skill and ult damage on the 4-piece. But after using your ult, you also get another skill damage buff. With Herta's enhanced skill and the fact that the set is called Scholar Lost and Erudition, I think it's pretty clear who it was made for. For your planar sets, I recommend using Izumo since you're gonna be running double Erudition and you can get the full crit rate bonus from it. But both Rutilant and Glomoth work for her, especially if you play gender bent Orochimaru, who's able to give her more speed for the Glomoth bonus. As for main stats, she's your standard hyper carry where you want crit rate or damage body, speed or attack boots, ice damage or attack orb, and an attack percent rope. The difference between speed boots or not depends on who your teammates are and the game mode you're in, but either one can work. Typically, attack works better with action forward characters and characters that buff speed for old ladies. If you're on a team with Jade and in Memory of Chaos, a lot of the time attack percent boots can be more damage, whereas in something like Apocalyptic Shadow, since it's a race to break and defeat the boss, most of the time speed is going to be better for that game mode. If you really want to know what determines if speed or attack boots are better, it depends on if going speed over attack will result in more ultimates. If you're in Memory of Chaos, which is a cycle-based game mode, odds are it's possible to get the same number of ultimates even on attack, as it really doesn't matter if you defeat enemies at the start or the end of the cycle, as long as they're defeated. Anyways, it doesn't really matter much because either way you're going to be doing enough damage to blow up the ocean. As mentioned before though, we're hag maxing. I didn't know I was into it until I did. What's crazy is that she might even be too old for young gravy. She appeals to everyone though when built right, and getting her to a solid crit ratio is half the deal. The other half it's speed tuning, and for that you'll want to run Herta at a regular DPS speed of 135 unless playing her with Jade, where you'll want her to be 136 or 114. So basically crit and speed substats. Here's the build summary for Blair. Having a bigger hat often correlates with having a bigger brain. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Because Big Herta is so smart, she locked a skill point behind her light cone. Yeah, I'm pissed too. Since Herta can eat up a ton of skill points with her skill ult skill rotation, you can end up without skill points in certain teams. And because of that, her light cone is an insane quality of life improvement. Forget the damage for a minute. A skill point on every ultimate? Herta might be absurda. It gives 12% crit rate and 60% skill and ult damage while also having the highest erudition light cone base attack. It's kind of disgusting and also works on our Genti. I say our because he got gigabuff this patch, much like our general. If you don't have her signature, the next best thing is going to be the battle pass light cone at S5, since you can max out the damage bonus from it and it has a decent base attack for a 4-star. If you happen to have Jingyan's signature before dawn or are Genti's in instance before a gaze, they're both super strong and make building crit a little bit easier. Not that you need it with 80% crit damage from Herta, and then also Sunday and Remembrance MC throwing your builds on their backs. For free-to-play players, the Breakfast Light Cone is still gonna net you really solid damage with Herta due to its damage bonus and stacking attack bonus. If you don't have any of the premium options, this is probably the one you'll want to use. Night on the Milky Way at S1 is slightly worse, but with super impositions, it's a little bit better. I'm genuinely not really happy. I'm also not really happy with the direction that Star Rail's been going with light cones and making units feel inconvenient without them. But at the same time, if you don't go all in for the Kudu Kudu, what are you doing? Here's a chart comparing light cones on the Herta. This isn't the end-all be-all ranking for them because their effectiveness can change based on the content, but this is a good general guideline. The Herta's teams are very flexible, but also very complex, and it's not a hand on her thigh. Anyways, I'm gonna go over everything you need to know about them. So first off, you need a second erudition with the Herta teams. This is just to get her crit bonus, but also to get all of her passives actually activated and her generating a ton of energy and interpretation stacks. This can be done with Jade. Jade is gonna be the best erudition partner for Herta in most content, just because she's great in Pure Fiction, she's great in Epoch Shadow, and now she's even incredibly good in Memory of Chaos. The reason is because she can actually give a speed bonus to her deck collector, and that could be Lingsha if you want her to just attack more frequently and use more skill points, but you might not have the skill points to be worth using on Lingsha as much as you would on just Herta herself, the Madame Herta, the Herta Grande. Giving her more attacks means she's going to be getting more 30 energies when she is using her skill, and overall, Jade and her can be really great together. But honestly, you can just make most characters deck collector. It's just gonna be a matter of your skill points. Regular, tiny, little baby puppet Herta is going to be also pretty dang good for most content. The biggest issue is gonna be if there's not enemies constantly spawning more ads, so that kind of makes her less good in MOC unless you're against the Swarm Bug. If you're against the Swarm Bug, then it's fine because you can bring enemies down to half HP and then Herta can activate, which will give you a ton more energy on the Herta. But mostly for Pure Fiction and Epoch Shadow in some instances, Herta is going to be pretty good. I wouldn't recommend her in MOC, but you can try it if you want. Himiko also works, but specifically in content where you can actually break the enemies. The Herta's break isn't like super insane or anything, so you're kind of going to be relying on your supports and Himiko to also break. It's kind of niche. She's not going to be doing as much work as she would in her break teams, but she can be your second erudition. Rappa can also be your second erudition. She doesn't need to use her skill points very often, and it's fine. The only thing is she's kind of a break ninja, and you're not really doing much breaking here, so it works, but I would still recommend going Jade for any content or Herta for some of the other content. There are also other erudition units you can use, and if you're in Pure Fiction or something, you can just run Argenti. That's fine. Again, it might be a skill point issue, but what I would recommend for free-to-play players is to actually try out Serval. Serval has really great use cases with the Herta because you can give her the light cone called Passkey. This basically at S5, a 3-star light cone, so you should be able to do it. Gives you 12 energy whenever you skill. Now, her getting 12 energy is great because that means she can use her ultimate more frequently, and her ult is a AoE attack that can hit 5 targets, which can generate 15 energy for the Herta, but also you don't even have to use her skill every single time. You can also use her basic attack, and you're still gonna get 9 energy to the Herta. What I would recommend is just building her fast. You can give her the Eagle set for action forward, and I gave her Sprightly Von Mach for even more energy, and an ER rope. We don't care about her damage, we just want her to be a battery for Herta, and she's really good at it. Serval also really thrives in situations with Remembrance MC because she generates so much energy that you can generate more charge for Mem. She's a great partner with Remembrance MC for the Herta. I would highly recommend this if you don't have Jade. Now, as for other supports that you can play action forward supports like Robin, Sunday, or Remembrance MC. I haven't actually gotten into the story to unlock Remembrance MC because it is day 1, so editor, do your thing, I guess. Robin can be great with her for all of the buffs that she provides, and Sunday as well, but Sunday can actually give energy direct to Herta, which in his case is 20% of her max energy pool, which should be just over 40 energy, 44 if you want to be exact, and that's pretty damn good for her. And then Remembrance Trailblazer also has action forwards. I highly recommend checking out my guide if you haven't already because she is amazing, or he, depending on the Trailblazer you pick. Honestly, I just always think of Stell because she's funny and a raccoon. All of these characters do have an action forward mechanic. With Remembrance MC, you can play attack or speed boots depending on the content. I recommend using speed boots if you're in Epoch Shadow, and attack or speed can work in other content. It really just depends on how many ultimates you're getting. With Sunday, you definitely want to try and either go hyper speed Sunday or speed tuner to Sunday. It's a little difficult to do the speed tuning thing because you're gonna skill with the Herta, skill with Sunday, skill with the Herta again, ult with the Herta, and then skill with the Herta again. That's a lot of skill points. That's gonna eat away at them. And if you don't have his light cone and Herta's light cone, that is going to be a lot of minus skill points. I don't think most most people are going to be able to do that. So you can also just opt to play super fast Sunday, like 160 speed if you can, 161, and then bring up Herta on attack boots. And then Robin, I still recommend going speed boots if you're going to play with Robin, just because Robin doesn't have the most insane action forward. She only has the 100% for your team, but it's not like always happening. It's not always active. But honestly, between Robin and Remembrance MC I found to actually get me better results with the Herta. Robin, I feel like would do better for your other double DPS teams, whereas Remembrance MC just seems so perfectly catered to the Herta. But okay, enough yapping about her partners specifically. Let me show you some teams. So here is one team that you can run with her. If you run the Herta with Jade, Lingsha, and Remembrance MC, you're gonna have a lot of damage on your hands. One of the main reasons that Remembrance MC is so good with the Herta is not only because Herta is getting more energy and thus generating more charge for Remembrance MC, and that the charge that you get from your other allies is also helping both of these units. The main reason that Remembrance MC is so strong is the true damage, because the Herta has so many buffs in her kit that she quickly hits diminishing returns for getting buffs like attack, damage bonus, and crit bonus. Specifically crit bonus, she is seeing a lot less return on because she already gets 80 from her passive. You're gonna have some built into her already, and you're getting more crit bonus from Remembrance MC. But true damage is literally a completely different multiplier and another instance of damage, so it's actually way stronger than if she were to just get buffed, because you're just getting extra damage. There's no diminishing returns about that. It is always just 50% of the damage if you have Eidolons on Remembrance MC, which you should be able to get for free. Lingsha and Jade are able to help generate a lot of energy for the Herta, which is also more charge for Remembrance MC. This team is sick. And then here's some more things to think about. Ho-Ho can also generate energy for the whole team, which if you're playing Remembrance MC here is really great, but I am just showing Sunday is a viable option. You can also play Sunday here. Remembrance MC will probably feel a little different to play because again, when Ho-Ho generates energy for your entire team, Remembrance MC is going to get a lot of charge, which is more action forward for Herta. And then Serval is also a free-to-play option. If you want a full free-to-play team, you'd basically just play Remembrance MC, Serval, and then a sustainer of your choice. This could be a 4-star sustainer, but there are not a ton of great 4-star sustainers that are going to be able to keep up with Ho-Ho and Lingsha, so keep that in mind. And then you can also play Aventurine too if you want. Now, there is one thing I mentioned in here about her light cone, and I think it's really important that you guys know that. So we're going to talk about going for her light cone or her Eidolons next. I think it's safe to say that if you're at this point in the video, you really don't want Herta to be power crept. In essence, you truly are hag maxing. But are Eidolons worth it over her light cone? Well, E1 is a pretty solid buff, since it takes 50% of whatever the highest interpretation stacks are and adds them together for the damage calculation of her enhanced skill. Essentially, that 42 stacks that you have can turn into 63 stacks worth of multiplier. And if you're not at 42 yet, you can still get the 50% ice damage buff from her traces if the new stacks would add up to it. It also resets interpretation to 15 instead of 1, so it just makes stacking easier and helps out a lot in 2-target combat. Her E2 makes her really feel like an Emanator though, because what the fuck is this? Considering you already have E1 at that point, stacks won't be an issue, and you get a ton more damage. But on top of that, you also get a 35% action forward on every enhanced skill, which not only allows you to run attack boots in virtually every situation, but also gives Herta so many more opportunities to attack. This Eidolon adds anywhere from 30 to 60% more overall damage depending on your team comp and stats, and it is absolutely disgusting. E3 is a skill and talent level up, which is the bulk of her damage, and E4 is a passive speed increase to every erudition character on the team. 12% speed is essentially half of speed boots on every character, which is awesome, especially if you know speed thresholds. And E5 is an ultimate and basic attack level up. E6 is also huge, for good reason. It costs like $1,000. It gives Herta 20% ice res pen, meaning against enemies that aren't weak to ice, she's still doing full damage, save for the toughness bar. And against enemies that are ice weak, she's doing even more damage. But what it also does is make it so her ultimate does significantly more damage based on the amount of enemies left on the field. The main issue with erudition characters is that they tend to not be great at single target. But in the Herta's case, she was already decent at dealing with less than 5 enemies, and with E6, she's basically just an all-rounder for DPS. With all that said though, I want to say first that I would be careful spending too much early on in the patch, since stronger characters tend to be released later when new metas come out, and we are probably going to see a lot of Remembrance characters. And if I were you, I probably wouldn't spend in general since this is a gacha game. But if you saved up, or if you're gonna spend anyways, I'd recommend going for Herta's light cone over E1 most of the time, since her light cone not only gives her a ton of damage bonuses, but it also fixes her #1 quality of life issue, which is that she guzzles more skill points than a Hummer guzzles gas. E1 is technically more damage damage, and E2 is a lot more damage, but getting your light cone will help you with quality of life and almost reach the damage of E1. E1 and E2 are crazy and will likely hold you out for a while in this game, but Casterus and the Cat Girl are coming eventually, alongside Walmart Gilgamesh, so you got a lot of awesome characters to look out for. Spend responsibly and subscribe to instantly win 100% of your 50/50s 50% of the time.